So today we'll be talking about impermanence and death in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition. We'll be summarizing what we've learned in class as well as applying it to everyday life, and then also talking about what we personally believe. So the teaching on impermanence and death is basically boils down to that we shouldn't become attached to worldly possessions because all that really matters is karma. Impermanence and death has two sides according to Buddhist teaching. That is that as soon as we are born, we begin to die. Now, the whole teaching on impermanence and death is one of the four thoughts which turn the mind towards the Dharma, meaning that it gets the mind ready to free itself from all the attachments in the realms of the living. Our text states that one must be ready to give up life's concerns, lose relations, give up possessions, and finally let go of the consciousness that fills the body. The body is only a vessel. The consciousness fills the body. We went over in class the hotel example. So the body is a hotel and the consciousness is a hotel guest. Eventually it'll check out. And this kind of boils down to that worrying about accumulating wealth and possessions is a useless pursuit. Another teaching is that samsara is cyclical, so things are always changing. That's the universe's only constant. Since the future is unknown, there's always some form of evanescence. It was interesting to learn that the Buddhist monastics are the most fearful of death. Now, we speculate that maybe that's because they fear not accomplishing enough in this life, or also that they might lose the precious human life and be born into a hell realm. Another aspect of samsara is that lifespan is also unknown. So a technique that some Buddhist monks practice is called Che Tar Gong Ba, which is liberating animals, and which is supposed to extend the lifespan. And it shows that even those who practice Buddhism are unknowing of their fate.
Another aspect to death and impermanence is the idea of reincarnation. Reincarnation is something that is usually talked about in the Eastern world, and it is where your consciousness leaves the dead body and is transferred to a new one. And again, as stated before, the only thing you can take with you is your karma, no other belongings or personal items. The whole idea of Buddhism is to stop this reincarnation of this cycle of samsara, as they call it. And it is believed that when one person dies, their soul enters an intermediary state known as barda, which can last up to 49 days. And in between those 49 days, it'll be transferred to a new body. Another idea that we touched upon was the idea of recollecting or remembering death. When we forget death, we are under the illusion that we'll be on this earth forever, and this ends up increasing our arrogance and our greed and our proclivity for exploiting others. The best way to recollect death is to have less worldly clinging in order to increase our happiness, and to try to develop good qualities and to purify our facts. The recollection of death gives us a sense of our own limitations on earth and the importance of our thoughts, words, and deeds for our life and death after in eternity or cyclic samsara.
Various examples of impermanence in life. The declining of beauty as one ages. There are high divorce rates, especially in the United States. A lot of people move around, and as such, friendships are lost. The president changes, policies and laws can change as well, and the climate changes over time.
Okay, so after that little recap of what we learned in class, it's time to actually talk about how Buddhist death and impermanence applies to our everyday life. So let's start with our social lives. So as young adults, we believe that when we're with our friends, we believe that nothing we do has any consequences or further repercussions. We think that we are invincible and thus end up engaging in risky action. So for me, one of my friends actually got into a car accident. I was bedridden for a full month. Even though the accident wasn't his fault, this month in bed still taught him that nothing was forever, whether it be his life or the car he was driving. This can also be applied to how we all live as a university, I guess, wise community. So not even the university has stayed the same in its past 200 years. We've had a new president, James Ryan, come in. The prices of dining hall food have increased, maybe not in quality, but definitely in terms of price. We also have new teachers that have come and old teachers that have left. And it just goes to show you that even a university that has this prestigious time that it's been around still has parts to it that are added and taken away every year.
So in terms of the community, values change over time. For example, the civil rights movement. Before the 1960s, in the South, it was okay to discriminate against people because of their color. After the civil rights movement of 1964, that slowly started to change. Another example is that the city of Charlottesville has changed shape over its years from a small town in the early 1800s to the city it is today. On the national level, retirement and pensions derive from the idea that certain parts of life have to come to an end and the capabilities of man are not permanent. And also, life insurance comes with the underlying understanding that nothing stays healthy and living forever. As such, preparations need to be made.
Think of the teachings. Life without some attachment is not fulfilling. The idea of stopping existence entirely is not appealing as well. Self-preservation is emerging in the West, but in the East, it's still fleeting. For example, with cryogenics, the West is attempting to gain control of death. Time for the West is linear. It's moving forward, but it's interesting to see a cyclical approach. For example, in the West, we have a phrase, "Don't cry over spilled milk," meaning don't take time to think of what happened in the past and move forward. Why death is a taboo in the West. People in the West like to keep things private, such as private funerals. We drive to achieve a higher position in life. We live in the now, and death is an inconvenient wrench in the plan. We also have a secular culture. Expectancy in the West is also rising, so we have more to accomplish before death. It's portrayed as very scary, and people don't like to confront what's scary.
So now we just want to take some time into putting our own religious beliefs into how we think it will relate to the Buddhist beliefs that we've been talking about. So for me, I'm a Hindu, so I believe that Hinduism is one of the religions that shares the most in common with Buddhism, since they both originated from the same area. Hindus also share the idea of reincarnation just as Buddhists do. However, there's no concept of bardo, and I believe that Hinduism also doesn't have the 6 realms of being. It is also believed that when one dies in Hinduism, their soul lives in like a quasi middle realm between heaven and the real world, and only when the family of the deceased performs a ceremony will the soul be allowed to pass into heaven and eventually a new body. Unlike Buddhists who do not believe in an eternal soul, Hindus do believe in an Atma that is everlasting and non-fleeting. So the idea of impermanence is quoted in Hindu scripture, but it's more specifically stated that the impermanent nature of things is an opportunity to gain what is permanent, such as a better Atma or a better place in life in your next reincarnation. In my opinion, though, overall, if you're a good person, you'll be fine. Change and impermanence brings about the human ability to adapt to new situations, which I think is great. Life is more fun when we get to experience new and different things instead of the same old mundane stuff over and over again. Death can be hard, but the idea that I'll be reincarnated based on my past deeds pushes me to be a better person. And I also believe that I'll wake up every day, unlike some Buddhist monks, and I don't fear my death. Everything I do is to make my soul into a better person, and I believe that I'm on the right track to do so.
Islam, it's considered that a man and woman is the union between the body and the spirit, and that death occurs once the spirit leaves the body, and it's written in the Quran that death is inevitable and one cannot escape it. Once a person dies, they are interrogated by angels in their graves, and based on the determination that the person was a righteous believer or a sinner, their soul will then be put in heaven or hell temporarily while they wait for the day of judgment with God. And on the day of judgment, God weighs on their deeds committed in life, and then it's determined whether or not they go to heaven or hell forever. In my opinion, I don't focus on death as leading to the day of judgment, but consider it to be the result of a biological deterioration of our bodies. But I do consider that death is inevitable and that nothing in life is permanent. So I try to live my life to the fullest with little to no regret. And this comes with the behavior of having common decency towards others in order to live my life to the fullest and to have an improved mental.
For myself, I'm an agnostic. So that means that I don't have an idea what happens after death, but it really doesn't matter to me. If there's an afterlife, I will find out. If there's not, I won't be around to mourn, so it doesn't really make any difference. Agnosticism says to try to live a good life, and being good to others is the best way to live well. Money to me isn't everything, but it does allow you to do some fun stuff, so I do want to have some of that. All in all, nothing really matters too much, so just have fun with life and make your own meaning. And my personal opinions is change is part of life, so you just kind of have to roll with it. Death is nothing to be afraid of, so long as you secure the future of those dependent on you for a future without you. And also, you should only hold on to that which is beneficial for your life, so good memories and good people.
So overall, we have shown two things. A, death is certain, and B, nothing is forever and is fleeting. So once we recognize these two things, we can be at peace with ourselves and our mind, and hence we have completed another thought of the mind and are one step closer to freeing ourselves from the cycle of samsara and the mind of dharma.
We had were, how does the overlying idea that one must be ready to give up relations impact family dynamics? Also, knowing life is impermanent and death is inevitable, would you want to live life to the fullest extent, or would you be content living by following steps and paths laid out for you by society?